Don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
This is Dave's Video Graveyard Halloween Nightmare Month.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I'm your number one fan.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk here.
Sometimes that is better.
This is Dave's Video Graveyard Halloween Nightmare Month.
It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard. A massive pleasure to be with you as the Nightmare Month continues. We are celebrating all things horror for the whole month of October. So things are going to be good and things are going to be bad. It is the usual scale of all colours of terrible and beyond. Now this evening it is a guest choice special, and I want to start off this evening with a little bit of a warning because my guest this evening is a friend of Moisty Magic, so I think everyone listening knows just what they're in for when Moisty vouches for our guests. We are joined right now. It is so good to have Celia Dunne, the amazing tattoo artist and horror fiend, absolute horror fiend, in the studio. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Very well, very well. Now, you sent through a list of your 10 essentially favourite horror films. I know how hard it is to make the list. How did you go making that list?
I didn't pick like a list of my favourite horror movies throughout my whole life because that'd be a nightmare to even figure out. But I managed to make a list of movies that I think are good this year or I've been enjoying this year at the moment. So, and also things that other people are going to enjoy if they listen to this.
Definitely, definitely. And of course, anyone that wants to mansplain or correct us, pick us up where we've gone wrong, Dave's Video Graveyard on WOWFM and all social media, and you will be ignored. Now, it is so awesome to have you. You are a very skilled tattoo artist.
Thank you.
Because there are many of the contrary in South Australia, so it is good when some quality rises to the top.
I try my best. It's my job. I try.
Awesome, awesome. So tell us a little bit how you got into that.
I've always loved art and drawing, like literally since I was little, and I didn't actually think I was going to be able to find a career that was art-based, but I did do visual arts in uni, and then I was just doing like odd hospitality jobs, stuff like that, and then eventually found a tattooing apprenticeship. So
Nice.
Went from there, and here I am.
Just once, I'd love to meet a tattoo artist that says how much they hate art. Because I think it would be the coolest...
I think that the tattooing industry sucks, but
100%.
I love it.
Yep.
I don't like what the tattooing industry represents, but I love tattooing itself.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. And it's... What I'm enjoying is the industry seems to be held a lot more accountable nowadays. So you're getting a lot of the...
It's definitely managed better now.
But not just that, you're getting a lot of the predatory trash getting kicked out of the industry, which is always a positive.
Yes.
So... So it is Nightmare Month and we are celebrating all things horror. Tell us your background when it comes to horror. You're somewhat of a fan?
Just a little bit, just a bit of a fan.
You hide it so well, I've got to say. Like, you really seem to...
I try to keep it subtle.
You're like, you know what? I don't want my passion to be shared with anyone. I'm going to keep it to myself.
I'm just going to talk about it on the radio, just keep it really low-key.
Well,
yeah.
For all our listener out there, I'm sure... So how hard was it to come up with this 10?
Pretty difficult, but I actually have been doing horror highlights on my stories on Instagram since last year. It was an idea that came up last Halloween just because I watch so much horror in my spare time, and I was like, maybe I'll just share this with my clients and on Instagram. So every day I was posting a new horror movie, and then everyone really loved that, so I started doing it every Monday. And I'm now doing another Halloween, October, if anyone follows me on Instagram, so I post horrors there as well. So I just flicked through that and saw what movies I've been watching this year and finding the most interesting, and narrowed it down to that.
Do you remember the start of the relationship? When did you fall in love with horror? What was the gateway film that got you there?
Actually, really funny you asked that question, because you sent me those questions to go through, and then I called my dad asking what was like the first horror movie I watched, when did I get into horror, and apparently I loved Nightmare Before Christmas and used to watch that on repeat when I was a kid.
So
that's where it started.
That film has so much to not answer for, but it definitely left an imprint on the zeitgeist of, for lack of a better term, it created a lot of goth chicks.
Oh yeah. And I'm not a problem with that at all.
Hey, there is much worse answers you could have given to the path into horror and into goth, because you could have said Good Charlotte, and that would have been quite upsetting. As you turn to reveal your full back piece of the Madden brothers.
Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, we're going to be celebrating all things horror this evening. Of course, anyone can join in the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you follow DVG. Of course, you can join the conversation. So we're going to start off with a little bit of music, and when we come back, we'll do the high fidelity quiz to get to know a little bit about you. This is 100.5 WOWFM. It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard Halloween Shymare Month. Celia Dunne is joining us for a guest choice special that is horror related. It's going to be a fantastic evening. Before we get to the selections, though, we have the high fidelity quiz, where we get to know a little bit about you as a film watcher and a bit of your history. So the first question, what was your local video store growing up?
So I couldn't think of a local video store, but I was moving around a lot when I was living with my parents and growing up. But they had a really extensive collection of movies and books and that, which I was really grateful for. In particular, they had this box set of all the classic, like Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi films. Just this one particular box set that I used to watch on repeat with my dad. So that was a big part of it.
Nice.
And then just kind of moved on to all the Tarantino, Lynch classics and that from there, and kind of never looked back.
But you were pretty much raised on, like, from what you're saying, like all the Hammer horror classics and all the purebred horror films of back in the day.
Yeah.
Very nice. Alrighty, pretend you're 10 years old. What is your favourite television show?
I wrote a joke answer for this one. I wrote Candle Cove from Channel Zero. Do you know that one?
I've never heard of that.
Alright, well, it's a show about a kids show that's cursed, and that's basically the backstory to that. I didn't really have a favourite TV show. I just say my favourite movie was Nightmare Before Christmas, or anything Tim Burton growing up.
Nice, very nice. What about your favourite ice cream as a kid?
I wasn't a junk food person. I can't think
of... Yeah,
I was one of those kids that ate like healthy food and stuff.
What about your favourite book?
My favourite book? I don't know. I was into anything that was fantasy, horror, anything like that. Loved the Harry Potter books. That's what I can remember.
Yep. And what about your favourite toy?
My favourite toy was a koala called Snuggles, and I was so attached to it that I wouldn't let my parents try to stitch it back together. I'd always keep it together with Band-Aids.
Yep.
So by the time I was like 10, I had this koala that's just wrapped up in Band-Aids because I wouldn't let my parents fix it.
And
still love him.
Did you use so many Band-Aids over the years that it basically was like rubber and it would bounce when you dropped it?
Yeah, it looked like a mess. It was disgusting.
Nice. Who goes on your Mount Rushmore of actors or actresses?
This was a hard one as well. Sarah Paulson.
Nice.
Susan Sarandon. Gary Oldman, of course. Jack Nicholson. Then you've got a tie between Angelina Jolie, Winona Ryder, and Helena Bonham Carter. They're just this holy trinity I couldn't pick one between.
So you basically just went into Tim Burton's Rolodex and you're like, yeah, you can all come in.
Yeah, pretty well. You can all join in.
Very nice. would you pretend it's 2018, because obviously it's a different world now.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to watch a movie at the cinemas or at home?
It depends what the movie is. The scary it is, I reckon, at the cinema. I want like the full comprehensible anxiety of it. So in a cinema if it's scarier. If not, I'll just watch it at home. Everything seems to be streaming now these days as well.
And you don't always have to put pants on at home, whereas, you know, the movies you always have to.
I mean, it depends if you're that kind of person.
Well, I've tried, and apparently I'm no longer welcome back to the matinee
I've
session.
tried too. It doesn't work out well.
I tried at the Regal Theatre at their, 11 o'clock on a Thursday screening, and I was asked to leave.
I don't see what's wrong with that. There's no problem there.
I never got to see the end of Racing Stripes. I'm still
Rude.
quite upset about that. Food of choice when you do go to the cinema?
Popcorn, always. Keep it simple.
Very nice. Name an actor or actress you would like to spend the night with.
Mads Mikkelsen, particularly in Hannibal, or Susan...
Spoiler alert of how this evening's going to go.
Yeah. Or Susan Sarandon, like Witches of Eastwick era. Gorgeous, incredibly underrated.
I would say that pretty much from the moment she was first on the screen till today, she is absolutely stunning and gorgeous.
Literally, and even like Rocky Horror Picture Show and that, goddamn, beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. Even in the absolute classic 2016 Adam Sandler, That's My Boy. She is gorgeous.
I don't like Adam Sandler films.
That's fine.
I haven't
Each to its
seen
own.
it.
The best thing being...
That's a controversial thing to say, I know.
Eva Amuri, who is Susan Sarandon's real-life daughter.
Yeah.
They both play the same character in different generations, and it's a bit of perfection when it comes to casting. And it is a terrible, almost irredeemable movie, but it just hits me right in the... Wow, these are my people. It is absolute trash, and I love it.
I might have to give it an exception for that then.
It has Vanilla Ice in it as himself, so it's always a good film.
Okay, that's tempting.
Definitely. Which film that didn't get one deserves a sequel?
I don't like sequels personally. They've usually not worked out well, except the only sequel that seems to be important was the Friday the 13th sequel, where Jason actually evolved, got a hockey mask, wasn't like some weird little creature. So that was obviously a series that needed a sequel, but I can't really think of any other ones that do.
Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Yeah. I don't know.
Agree to disagree.
I always feel like the original is the best, and there's so many films where I've just refused to watch the sequel because I'm scared it's going to get bad.
I'm more open to sequels than I am prequels now, especially secret prequels, where you go to watch a newer movie and it's like, haha, the twist is this is set before that one.
Yeah, that's a cool concept.
Who would play you in your biopic?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very.
I think he could pull it off.
Definitely.
And it'd be an honor for him to play me as well.
It's so funny. He's both ends of the scale at the same time. He's so captivating and charismatic, but also so terrifying. And so I was recently watching the film Another Round. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
It's where a bunch of high school professors come up with this idea about how much of their life could they live drunk. So every day they start out by getting drunk in the morning and just try to function.
How old is it?
It's like couple months old, maybe 3 or 4
check
months
it out.
old.
That sounds really interesting.
But I was going to say, just watching him be, such an unlikable person, completely wasted the entire movie. It just looks so much fun, and it's not even glorifying the whole situation. But there's something about he is so terrifying in his demeanor and his facial expression.
He's just got that thing. It's that thing.
When an actor like that is having fun in a film, it drags you in because you're like, well, they wouldn't be doing it if he didn't want to.
Yeah,
and
it's that spark. Yeah.
Are you going to go and see, is it Riders of Freedom or whatever it is, his newest film that I've seen the trailer for?
What new film? What is it?
It's essentially, I think it's a revenge film where something like a terrorist attack happens or something, and then they go on, on the defense. So,
well, I will be seeing it now.
What would be the main title song in your biopic?
Well, you already picked that one when you made the post about tonight's show with Goodbye Horses. But then I was trying to think of something else that's really cursed, and I was thinking Tiptoe Through the Tulips by Tiny Tim. That song.
Yep.
Yeah, something horrifying. Yeah.
Nice.
I like that.
So it sets up a good vibe for the whole movie.
Yeah, a nice, comforting movie starring Mads Mikkelsen.
And I hope that it's not even essentially a gender swap. It's just him playing you and never even bringing up, like, no one in the entire film acknowledges the fact that it's him playing you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a construct at the end of the day, so I feel it doesn't matter. Nice.
Very nice. Which TV or movie from your childhood would you like to reboot?
Reboot. Actually, I know the answer to this question. It's not horror related, but do you remember that thing that was going around about Steve from Blue's Clues, and he came back with that little message for everyone?
Yes.
I want him to make another Blue's Clues again. I want him to come back
Yep.
and make another series after he sent out that message for everyone, because it was so heartfelt and so beautiful.
I love the idea of those kind of reboots.
Yeah.
And, like, because my personal favourite would be the TV show I loved as a kid was the game show Amazing. I don't know if you know it.
No,
it was
I haven't
basically
heard
a bunch of school kids go on this game show. You had to answer your typical questions, but about halfway through the game, they then had to go in this massive maze and find keys or letters or clues, and it was really intense. You spent a lot of time yelling at the TV because they hadn't checked.
Yeah.
Like, there'd be 3 buckets and they'd only check 2, so you'd be yelling. I want that.
Getting
but
really into it.
The spin I want on it is you can only be a modern day contestant if you're on it when you're a kid. Yes. And so you have to come back as an adult and be on it. But you can obviously up the rating of it, and also you can drink before you start. So just add a bit of...
Make it a bit more generational.
Yeah. And I thought that would be a fantastic reboot. But, you know, one can dream. Name one famous person you'd like to hit with a hammer.
Joe Rogan.
You don't seem like Moisty's friend at all.
Oh, Rogan. No, cannot stand him. He's just one of those people, as soon as I hear his voice, it's just grating.
I don't listen.
Just one of those people. I can't stand him.
I do not listen to his podcast unless Alex Jones is on, because the cringe content that creates just warms my soul, because it's so fun to watch two people communicate. And
it makes me want to set myself on fire.
It just gives me the comfort of, wow, I'm not as dumb as I think I am when you hear those two talking. And it's my favourite kind of cringe content.
So a self-esteem boost.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. In saying that, I also push back because I'm an early 2000s tragic when it comes to reality television. Fear Factor was an amazing show, as was News Radio, that was like one of Joe Rogan's.
Fear Factor was great, I will give you that. It's the same.
So that's the tiniest asterisk on
It's the same as when he's on like fighting shows and that, and you just hear Joe Rogan's voice in the background, and you're like, "Oh, fuck's sake, not you again."
If you can make the entire world watch one film just once, are you going to use that power for good or for evil? What are you going to make everyone watch?
I would make people watch David Lynch movies, because I try to make everyone watch David Lynch films, and it's difficult. So I'd force them to watch them.
So you're essentially creating the darkest possible timeline.
Yes.
I would rather...
Happily.
If that happens, I just hope it's the day of like an Armageddon level event. Of
a like David Lynch Armageddon.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I don't know that I'd want society to continue with that.
And the Armageddon's got the same kind of storyline as a David Lynch film. It's just nonsensical and ridiculous.
Yeah, and well, it's already very similar to David Lynch, because it's essentially, by definition, not good. So yeah, no, it's very, very on brand, extremely on brand.
Wow, won't talk about David Lynch then.
No, you're welcome to have your wrong opinions. That's what this show is all about. We're here to celebrate wrong opinions.
Oh God, time for me to go.
The shortest guest choice special of all time. If you could add your favourite fictional character to any film, who would it be and what would you choose?
Well, I love terrible crossovers like Freddy vs. Jason, Alien vs. Predator. So I was kind of trying to think of a more ridiculous one. And I just wrote Freddy Krueger in like Breakfast Club or something.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Just first thing that came to mind.
someone else had Beetlejuice in Schindler's List. And I was
Yes.
like, wow, what a film that would be.
That's fantastic.
And how many movies in a week would you watch?
Usually 3 to 4. I binge a lot of series over and over, but 3 to 4 movies. I try to challenge myself to watch a lot of new horrors as well because I'm posting them too.
So I will put these 2 words to you and I'd love your input. Squid Game.
I think it was great. I loved it, but I think that one thing is because Netflix has so much access to so many different productions now that people can watch all these different shows, etc., etc. People are now finally seeing anime series that have been around for a long time, all that other foreign cinema, which is amazing. But Squid Game, for me, I found that there's a lot of things that were very similar to it. So I watched it, loved it, and it reminded me of Battle Royale.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I got that straight away.
And I actually posted up that movie yesterday saying that was my horror movie for the day. I want everyone to watch Battle Royale because that movie was actually what inspired Hunger Games.
Clearly it did, yep.
The Hunger Games director was inspired by that movie. And I feel like it's a concept that's been done over and over again, but because of the political aspect to it, that it's very relative to the environment we're living in today, in a way.
So, but you haven't straight up written off Netflix horror like a lot of horror enthusiasts seem to do. So I wanted to ask, have you seen Blood Red Sky?
What one is that again?
It's some hijackers take over a 747 passenger plane.
Yes.
And the lady's suffering from vampirism.
Yes, I saw that. I couldn't get into it. No. I was like, I had it on in the background while I was making dinner, and I kept like popping my head up, and I just kept seeing like the vampire around in the plane and that. Nah, didn't get into it.
What about when it comes to foreign horror? Have you seen I Saw the Devil?
What's that one again?
It's essentially a serial killer kills a policeman's wife. So he starts capturing the serial killer, torturing the serial killer, then letting him go.
And this is on Netflix?
I think it may be, if not. No, I'd suggest tracking it down because there's no way it would be rated in a way it could be seen on Netflix. I'm completely mind-blanking, but the serial killer is played by the original actor from the original Old Boy. So he's the serial killer. And the detective is played by Snake Eyes from the G.I. Joe's movies. So that's how good I am at remembering things.
I'll add that to my homework. Thank you.
Definitely. Awesome. What about, did you enjoy The Platform?
Enjoy The Platform. The Platform is fantastic. That's actually on my horror lists as well. Again, same kind of construct, but fantastic. It reminded me of... what's that movie about the ice train?
Snowpiercer.
Yes, it reminds me of Snowpiercer.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Very similar concept.
My biggest issue, because I do a lot of radio and recording and stuff, the sound of other people eating is upsetting. So The Platform was the highest grade of horror that I've ever come across for me.
It was pretty disgusting. 100%. Even all the leftover food and all that, pretty rough.
Definitely. Well, I think we should jump back into the music. That is the High Fidelity quiz. We all know now a little bit more about you. And let's start off your biopic right now. This is DVG. It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard, Shite Month. We are joined by Celia Dunne. Celia Dunne. Celia Dunne.
Thank
My
you.
apologies. Your first choice this evening made me realise how quickly I would be exposed this evening for being a poser when it comes to horror films, because the words art house were featured in the tags of the film itself. So why don't you take the lead and I'll get you to, are we going to say Celia-splain or horror-splain? What would you prefer?
Ooh, Celia-splain.
Can you please Celia-splain your first choice this evening?
So, my first choice was Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. It's, I think it was made 1960, something like that, and it was a very cheap Czech production. It's probably like an hour and a half long. But the history behind the film is that there was a uprising in the Czech Republic with film artwork all these things because a lot of wasn't allowed due to religious reasoning, so you weren't allowed to make artwork or movies that were satanic related or anything like that. And then Valerie and her Week of Wonders, it combined all these substances of like vampirism, Satanism, lots of like homoerotic themes in that as well. Really, really beautiful the way it was made. There's very little dialogue. It's all kind of just like scenes of like this girl who just kind of gets introduced to like all these like wonders of the world, which are obviously like the bad things in the church. By the end of the film, she gets like burnt at the stake kind of thing without giving it all away. But
from skipping through, because it is in full on YouTube right now.
Yep.
She seems pretty happy at that moment.
Yep. And that's the thing. It's very modern for its time. It's a very feminist kind of film in that sense. Just showing a girl kind of taking her liberty against the church and just doing what she wants regardless of what her mother or her church says. So it was really revolutionary when it was made, and it's still so enjoyable now. And even though it has like a lot of horrific themes, it's so beautiful and charming to watch. It's kind of like a fairy tale the way it's filmed.
Even the title of the film, like when you sent it through, it conjures up images straight away of like a psychedelic band you'd see playing in an episode of Scooby-Doo.
And it's very much like that as well, because you watch the film and it's a bit trippy as well. It kind of has scenes in fields with like flowers and plants, and then people like eating and drinking and like a garden or something, then demons appearing. It's all very theatric. It's really, really cool.
And it doesn't shy away from its art house roots either.
I love myself a little bit of art house.
Yeah. So how did you find this film?
I honestly will just sit around and research films and try and find new horror films because I'm constantly trying to find new ones. Valerie was one that I just saw popping up on my Instagram feed, and that a fair bit because of all the horror pages and that I follow. Was really well reviewed. Plus, it has that gorgeous cover that I can see over there of the daisies with the blood on it, and that drew me in straight away. The phrase "judge a book by its cover," my partner says it all the time, but you have to judge a book by its cover.
That's very true. That's how I used to.
When it comes to films, I think it's relevant.
Well, I think it's true with Zoo magazine as well. Back in the day when I used to buy those, I used to judge them by their covers.
Yeah.
Please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. So how often do you revisit this one? What kind of, there's certain horror movies like I quite often lean on Day of the Dead. I am obsessed with that film. However, it gives me this sense of dread from watching it. And afterwards, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give horror a break for a few days. I kind of need to reprogram. This seems bleak, but not bleak. So it almost seems like it's bleak in a shiny package. So you don't know how to feel watching it.
It's definitely one of those films that you kind of have to be in the right mood to watch. So I tend to not rewatch heaps of horror films because I'm constantly trying to watch new ones. This is kind of one where you need to really sit down and be in the right mood to focus on the entire thing, take it all in. Like, yeah, it's a very detailed storyline and you need to be watching the whole thing. So not just a watch every single night at home movie.
And what would you give this film out of 19?
Out of 19?
Yeah,
that's an interesting rating.
That's the
that
DVG
gives me OCD.
Comprehensive scale.
I'm going to give it a 16, I reckon.
16 out of 19? That's a decent movie. Awesome. Well, let's move on to your second choice this evening. This is DVG. We are talking about the feel-good hit of the summer, Midsummer to be exact. Why did you choose this film? Tell us all about it.
Well, it's a feel-good hit to start off with.
It is.
I think it's actually a really good film to follow up Valerie and her Week of Wonders, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
I see the link instantly.
Because it's that same kind of, woman's journey through a lot of trauma and suffering to kind of find healing at the end. But something interesting about Midsummer that I only just learned recently is the director's cut's actually up on Google Play now. So the original film was meant to be like 5 hours long. Ari Aster just made like this ridiculous long film. then cut it down to 4 hours, 3 hours, something like that. And then there was the cinema release. But then there's the director's release, and I was listening to a podcast where he described it as The Wizard of Oz, but in horror. And at first I heard that and I was just like, okay, dude, whatever. But basically, you watch the movie again and there's like the whole like Yellow Brick Road kind of theme. All the friends that she goes traveling with are characters from The Wizard of Oz. By the end, like, she's that happy character, like the May Queen or whatever. Yep. And all the themes connect. And it's really, really significant when you watch the film the second time again. It is just The Wizard of Oz.
I can... Wow, you're blowing my mind. I can definitely see the link there. One thing that I really appreciated about this was the use of colour and brightness and daylight. It is so far removed from what you'd expect.
It's very claustrophobic because you can't escape it, obviously, when you're watching a horror film. And it goes to nighttime, you're like, oh, great, everything's going to go bad, waiting for it to be daytime again. But you're just kind of like claustrophobic watching the film the whole time. I remember when I watched it with my partner the first time, I don't usually get that, but I was walking out of the cinema with a genuine anxiety attack. Like, I felt sick and disturbed after watching that film. And for a movie to evoke that kind of emotion, that's genuine talent right there.
I will admit, the first time I saw it at the cinemas, because, you know, what I do love is the way it subverts expectations, because the entire world, I know everyone says they didn't. Everyone went into this movie with their minds skewed by Hereditary, and they're like, okay, so I kind of know where we're going to go.
Yeah.
And then this pretty much is a sucker punch, because you were so expecting one thing, and the filmmaker's like, no, how dare you box in my work?
Well, he's got another film coming out soon as well with Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know what it's called. I've been seeing it pop up here and there, but it looks really interesting. So I'm excited for that one as well. But yeah, out of even Hereditary and Midsommar, like Hereditary, obviously incredible film. But just all the different imagery and even like the secret kind of things he had pop up in the film. Like, there's this one scene, obviously, there's that terrifying scene at the beginning where her entire family die. When she goes on that psychedelic trip and she's with, like, that whole cult dancing around, there's this split second where her parents pop up in the crowd while she's getting crowned the May Queen. And it's just, like, this split second thing, but he hides things like that throughout the entire film. So you have to watch it all over again. It's like that Fight Club experience.
I was going to say, like David Fincher.
Yes. So clever.
Is this one, because I know you said you don't quite often revisit a lot of horror. Is this one that you would? Because it seems...
Yeah, I've rewatched this one a couple times now. But again, the director's cut is 3 hours, so you really need to have enough time to do that. But I can watch this film over and over again. It's a masterpiece.
And, you know, to tie it back to good frenemy of the show, Moisty Magic... Her personality changed before and after seeing this film for the first time.
Yeah.
Was a scary transformation that it caused.
In what way?
She just seemed so creepily inspired by this film. It was like it rejuvenated her, and that was terrifying to me.
Oh, I hope she holds a Midsummer Festival.
I can only imagine.
That's all I want.
Because obviously, and not to, you know, lump them all in together, but it seems like when a big tentpole horror film does really well, we get a sprinkling of it through a lot of the lesser films.
Yeah.
So what did you think of things like, have you seen The Ritual?
Yes. What's that film about again?
Where he doesn't help someone there's a robbery in the store at the start, and a bunch of friends go on a camping trip.
Yes. And there's that big creature thing. Yeah.
The yak.
That's the way I'm describing it. The big creature thing.
Because the first time I saw this film, I wanted to guess. Because, you know, like with Hereditary, it just threw so many curveballs at you. With this, I kind of wanted to guess what it was. And I had only recently seen... it was a movie called The Timeless. Do you know that movie?
No.
It's a time loop horror film where some brothers go back to the cult that they grew up in and escaped. And there's a whole series of time loop areas where someone's stuck in like a 2-second time, like their whole life is spent in this 2-second time.
I'm going to have a list after this.
Yeah, no, it's and so I wanted this to be that because it definitely, if you're looking for it, you can find that in this, which I think that's a big part of the way the film was made, was you will find so many things if you go looking.
Well, there's even another thing as well, like I could just keep going on and on about Midsummer, but at the very beginning of the movie, like where they're shooting over the forest and then they show just like that wall painting that's in that building where everyone's sleeping.
Yes.
The entire wall mural is the storyline of the film, so it shows like the death of her family, then travelling over there, then like all her friends dying, then to the May Queen at the end. And it's literally there at the beginning of the film, like a big spoiler showing the whole story. Than that.
But I'm just glad that they don't, like a lesser filmmaker would have leaned too heavily on that and kept, like in the big reel at the end, it would flash back and show.
And even Hereditary was similar to that as well. Like Hereditary had you constantly guessing because ACST has said now that it has like its kind of witchcraft sort of themes and that to it, but I still kind of stand by, I think that it was very much a metaphor of mental health, and that it was hereditary mental illness throughout the entire family, which
100%.
Finally resulted in what happened, like that catastrophic ending with the whole family, Toni Collette losing it completely.
So many horror movies are doing that now. Like I quite often point to like the likes of the Babadook and this, where it's like it's no longer the 80s and 90s where the supernatural is supernatural.
Yeah.
It's all allegories for grief and mental illness and all these other things.
And it's that part there. It's even like kind of, even where we're moving with horror now, a lot of horror, like how you were just talking about Squid Game before, that's very relevant. It's moving to more nearly a political basis where it's talking about kind of like, I know, the classism and things that we're facing today, even things like COVID and that are becoming relative in horror. And horror really creates that comfort zone where you can discuss things that are terrifying in real life, but to the full scale of how scary they actually are and make a metaphor of them.
But it's amazing, you know, the time we live in now, that's celebrated in filmmaking.
Yes.
But you look at the likes of like John Carpenter, where everyone's like, what's this crap? What are you doing this for? And, you know, it was almost not so much shunned, but, you know, critically it wasn't necessarily taken the way it was meant to be taken. And now it's celebrated. So, you know, it's a pretty funny journey that, you know, horror movie goes on.
It's beautiful, though.
It is. Let's jump into your next film. This is 100.5 WOWFM. Now, your next movie, all of the trailers had no dialogue whatsoever. So, rather than play the trailer, I just think we get straight into the absolute masterpiece of a film that I watched knowing nothing whatsoever about it. We are talking about Mandy.
So, funny story about Mandy. I can't stand Nicolas Cage. I am very sorry to anyone listening right now. When we first watched it, we got like 15 minutes in and I was kind of just like, nah, not having this, because it's got that very kind of dreamy, quiet ending, quiet beginning where it's just him and his wife living in the forest, and it goes on for like a good 20 minutes like nothing's happening. But that's where it becomes similar to films like Midsummer and Valerie and all of that. But then it just dives into this horror straight away, and obviously can't go giving away the whole story in that, but Nicolas Cage...
Just do it.
His wife dies, and then it just turns into this whole horror theme where Nicolas Cage goes crazy. There's that one scene where he's just in the bathroom, which I think was one of the most magical scenes that's been in a horror film.
If and, you know, God forbid, because much like you said, well, I liken what you've just said about Nicolas Cage to what I said to you about Eli Roth. So we are
now
back.
We're even.
We're friends again. Seeing if Nicolas Cage was to pass and the highlight reel at the Oscars that year to celebrate his career doesn't feature him in jocks in a raglan tee with a bottle of vodka,
just screaming
in an orange 1970s bathroom, just screaming and laughing and every range of emotion.
I've been there.
All the little, you know, throughout his career, all the little pepperings of Nicolas Cage-isms all culminate in like a 6-minute bathroom scene in this movie, Mandy. I didn't know what to expect, but this movie was incredible.
Yes.
I wanted Cheddar Goblin so very badly. I'm actually surprised. Like you go in a lot of the places that sell the sword replicas and stuff. The fact they don't have the Mandy weapon is
that is actually crazy now that you say that, because it's such a cool weapon. Even that scene where he just turns into like this tough Terminator character just wielding this big sword thing.
I do like, because it's very abstract in a lot of the ways the film's delivered.
It's kind of like 80s fantasy nearly. Like it reminded me of things like, I don't know, like Lord of the Rings sort of style fantasy nearly. Even just like where it switched between animation and then acting, and then it had the colour schemes, which was very Giallo in a way as well. It had the reds and the blues.
Definitely. It was pretty much, you could see the filmmakers, they've sat down with, stiff pants because of how much they enjoyed Suspiria and the things where, films where the colour grading are their own character. Like, your Suspiria or, Demons,
I love Suspiria.
Any of those. Of course you do.
I'm that guy.
And because I like in it, because with mentioning John Carpenter, I like the directors that were inspired by that stuff, but not necessarily the direct line to that source material.
Well, there was that movie that came out recently, Malignant.
Yes, yep.
That was super, super Giallo. When I was watching that, it was just blue, red. And the way that was done in like a modern theme, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And because it's so effective in Mandy, because like you've got this gang of demonic, acid-fueled, basically leather-clad
so sick
killers. They look amazing.
Sick.
They ride motorbikes, but all their headlights are red, which actually give you that red lighting that was so famous from all the Italian horror films.
Even just that concept there, the fact that they were turned into monsters because of drugs that they were taking, that kind of symbolism there was so cool. But they're just these creatures that just came out of nowhere and then killed his wife. It's just such a wacky story, but so good. And
you're mentioning about spoiling this film. I think if you were to sit shot for shot and explain it to someone, they still wouldn't be prepared for what the final package of this film was.
Yeah. It's a lot, but it's good.
Definitely. Shout out to Nicolas Cage, who I'm sure is listening and crying because you hurt his feelings.
Love you, Nicolas Cage. I don't mean it.
Let's jump back into the music. Don't forget you can join in the conversation. Dave's Video Graveyard on WOWFM. People in 1983 were much better at objectifying Susan Sarandon than I, so I will leave it to their words. The open sensuality of Susan Sarandon. That's my favourite part of the film. Why did you choose this film?
Partly that as well. The Hunger actually inspired Hotel, American Horror Story. That series, the Lady Gaga character, is actually based off the Catherine Deneuve character in this film. This is one of my favourite vampire movies of all time since I've seen it. It's just super gothic, super cool. It's got this beautiful sapphic love story in it as well. It's got David Bowie in his peak. It just ticks all the boxes.
He's unfortunately not wearing the tights from Labyrinth. And because, every time I've watched The Hunger, I'm like, I kind of like to know what his testes are up to right now.
It's the one missing part of it, but it ticks all the other boxes apart from that.
And it's so, because we had because this was early 80s, but you had a lot of the schlocky 80s vampire films. So the likes of Fright Night, the absolute classic, The Lost Boys, things like that. They tried to sexualize vampires in an openly objectified, good-looking way.
Well, vampires are always very kind of eroticized in a way. There's something that's kind of, I think, eroticized about sucking blood from another person from every vampire film that there is, and vampires are always hot characters as well. We can't deny that.
I was going to say, the thing about it is they don't rely, in The Hunger, they don't rely so heavily on their physical attractiveness. There's
Yes.
just they exude this sexual.
There's that opening scene, even just the opening scene. I could watch and I could turn the movie off. Where you got Bela Lugosi's "Dead" by Bauhaus playing in the background. They're walking into that leather-clad bar. There's just David Bowie sitting having a ciggy, sunglasses on, and it's just so cool. And that's just the whole film. It's just cool, classic, beautiful.
Can I make an assumption about you without offending you?
Go.
You really enjoyed Only Lovers Left Alive? Yeah, of course you did. The reason I bring that up, the first time I saw that film, I'm like...
Only Lovers Left Alive had some missing elements to it, but the thing that I liked about that movie is that it definitely shared that thing with The Hunger where blood was not just kind of like your food, but it was like your life source, and it was like a drug, and there was so much more that it was metaphorical for as well. So like even in The Hunger, how Catherine Deneuve has like all her husbands like up in the ceiling, and then David Bowie starts to fade away, then she takes on Susan Sarandon, and it's more based on the vampirism, but more so like love stories, just so to say.
Yeah, definitely. I've always, back in the early mid-90s it would have been, we got the TV channel Arena, and they used to have their, I don't want to say wanky, but they had their more prestigious films that they'd show on like a Thursday night, and it was a lot of like cinema classics, and that's where I first saw The Hunger, and it was so stylized. I kind of wasn't ready for what it was because, like I said, at the time I was watching, I was loving Fright Night. I was watching all these schlocky, all these vampire movies. I remember loving Interview the Vampire a whole heap. Revisited it last year, and I was like, wow, this movie makes me actually think Tom Cruise is a better character than Brad Pitt's Louis, who's the biggest, sooky, whiny, unbearable vampire put to film, I think. But yeah, the Hunger it's a very grown-up, mature vampire film.
It's beautiful, I think. It's a really beautiful film, and at times it's even got that element where you forget that it's about vampires because the storyline itself is so beautiful and cool as well.
Yeah.
And then it just incorporates the fact that they all drink blood as well.
Well, it's one of those movies where you could essentially say, hey, think of early 80s David Bowie. Now put him into a classy vampire movie, and you'd almost be able to imagine what this film is. Because it is...
a good film to watch.
It is Bowie to its core, though.
Yes.
Very stylized, almost in like an androgynous sense, the way he is.
Yes.
They don't rely too heavily on, him being super masculine or anything like that.
That's the thing. Even this film, it flew under the radar a fair bit when it was first released as well. Like, I had trouble finding it, and it's not a film that's, I don't know, super well known or remembered in history as a vampire film itself. And a lot of the themes in it are incredibly modern and incredibly ahead of its time as well.
Did they not make a Hunger television series that David Bowie was the overarching joint? I'm pretty sure there was, if not a mini series. And David Bowie, because the reason I know it was a remake was because the age of David Bowie at the time, he had much longer hair. I reckon it was like 97, 98 era.
Can I Google this now?
Yeah, definitely. I could be completely wrong, but I'm positive he was the overarching, almost like the narrator of the show.
The Hunger TV series.
I could be wrong.
Oh, you're right.
Yes. I can picture David Bowie vividly.
So it's 2 seasons. It's 1997. Oh my God, I've got so much to do. I'm going to put my phone
Your
down.
books are closed just that bit longer.
But Susan Sarandon's not in it, so that's where it has a major pitfall already.
But you know where she is?
In my heart.
In my heart.
In my heart.
That's it. In my Google image search history as well.
Oh, yeah. Put my phone down.
For research for films, no other reason.
For research.
Research.
Leave
me alone. Don't come in my room, I'm researching. So, how often do you revisit this one? Because I will say, if you're not in the mood, please forgive me. The Hunger's kind of boring when you're not in the mood.
Are you serious? No, I reckon it's fantastic. And even just that one scene of Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon, that's exciting. That's an exciting scene.
I believe you. These are all art is subjective as are opinions on this show. I'm not going to die on any
I'm
hills.
getting so forceful.
I know.
It's a good film.
It is as good as Nicolas Cage.
Oh.
Point counterpoint.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. Let's get in to your next choice. This is DVG. American Horror Story Season 7, Cult. Why did you choose specifically this season?
Well, this one was actually the lowest rated season from everything I've seen online, but I reckon it's the best one. I reckon it was really gutsy when it was made as well, because the very first scene, it dives in, it's about the Trump election. The very first scene is literally people watching their TVs, Trump getting elected, and it's just so horrifying because it's so real, but they've made it a horror movie. There's like people screaming, crying, freaking out. Then there's the more kind of like scary, like rednecks in America, like freaking out, being like, yeah, the TV and that. And there's like this dark kind of evil music playing in the background. And that's incredible, doing that at the same time that Trump was elected. Then it delves into a cult that evolves from basically things being allowed during the Trump election and kind of just showing in like a small scale, in a small town, what's happening to America on a greater scale. And it's incredibly done.
Yeah, I can definitely see, from what you've described, I can definitely see why America weren't up for. They're happy to shine the light and the magnifying glass anywhere else except back on themselves. So yeah. I can imagine it was a little... I think like what you're saying is the positives of it. I think perhaps that's what was perceived as the negatives of it.
Yeah.
Because like, how dare you show us how bad we are right now?
That's not what we're like.
It's... And this goes back to what you were saying earlier, the way horror can be so effectively used.
And that's just it. It shows... a microcosm of what's actually happening right now, and you can get away with it in horror. And again, it's that safe zone where you can discuss these super full-on issues that are happening today and be like, oh, it's horror, it's safe, but we can talk about it here.
So sell season 7 to me.
Well, first of all, we've got Sarah Paulson, Evan Peters, we've got Emma Roberts for a split second. The rest of the cast of American Horror Story. But they use a lot of bases of real cults as well. So they draw inspiration from like the Jonestown Massacre, Charles Manson, Heaven's Gate. What's the other one? The
Children of God?
No, the house that was Waco.
Waco. The Branch Davidians.
Yes, the Branch Davidians. So there's a lot of history drawn from that. And... yeah.
Nice. Would you said this is your favourite of all 7 seasons?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So they've obviously, because personally don't watch it, so they've steered away from the supernatural elements?
Yeah, so that's what I actually liked about it, because I, of course, love the other seasons, but I don't love the other seasons as much as other people do, each to their own. I liked that Cult was based on things that are genuinely terrifying and things that people were experiencing and what was scary in the world, and is still scary in the world at the moment, but yeah, converting it into horror in a way that everyone could see it and watch it on TV in a safe zone, like I keep describing it.
Yeah. I totally got... yeah, that sounds so incredible, honestly. The way it has... because so many horror shows, particularly with Netflix,
yeah,
when they stray too far from the source that everyone fell in love for,
yeah,
it doesn't take much for the scales to tip and everyone to suddenly like, I hate this show now.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's cool that they managed to not only stay essentially relevant, but change things up, but not, upset the core fans of the show.
And again, it was still poorly received, I think. After Trump went out of presidency, I think it actually gained more popularity. and kind of like went up in the charts a tiny little bit.
Do you think any of that had to do with the escapism level of streaming television shows now, where you watch something to forget about the real world? And this is just like, hey guys,
that
remember the
part's
real
actually
world?
Really interesting, being like, hey, do you want to know more about Trump right now while this is all going on?
You go, oh, last thing I want to do is, I don't want to care about
watch
current
a TV
events.
show about how bad my life is at the moment.
Pretty much. Now, I just realised, because obviously you are, believe it or not, you're one of the most prestigious horror fans we've had here on DVD, because you can talk the talk. It's not just you bought a shirt with Ghostface on it, and that's the tick you need.
I appreciate it. I try my best.
Now, it's all riding on, I'm going to say a word. We're going to do a word association game with one word, and I'd like to know your feelings. Supernatural.
Supernatural.
Specifically the television show.
I didn't really get into Supernatural.
Thank goodness we can be friends. There is a type.
Something we agree on.
There is a type, and it is uber fans of Supernatural. There's a wall that will always be there between me and them, no matter what. Even if we're the most lovely people and we have so many. I know it sounds very ignorant of me, but there's just something about that show.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't even be able to tell you the storyline of it, because I was just like, mind blank, no thoughts. Yeah.
What's that stupid show with the car and the two dudes and whatever it's about?
You tell me.
It's Angel for middle-aged ladies. That's my opinion, not the opinion of WOWFM.
But no, haven't watched it.
Good. Fantastic. Great answer.
I got it right.
Yes, you win.
What
ding,
do I win?
ding, ding. You get to talk about Megan Fox without me objectifying her, because your next choice is Jennifer's Body.
Jennifer's Body, amazing film. I think everyone can agree on that. Now, the special part about it, it was actually made by a female writer and director and that, so it was all pretty well femme created.
It's from the maker of Juno, is it not?
The woman who wrote the film, it's a female writer, wrote the story.
I think she made Juno as well.
Did she? Yeah. Let's find out. Oh, yep.
I reckon it is from director Diablo Cove, which is the writer of Juno. I think she also directed Juno.
The interesting thing about Jennifer's Body is, for lack of a better word, how much it flopped when it was made, and it wasn't actually that popular. It is a cheesy film. It is a cheesy, high school kind of film. But then we watch it today, and just the theme of a girl getting brutally murdered, so to speak, it was horrific, and then coming back and then killing man. It's a pretty dark story when you think about it, and then she gets killed at the end as well, and she gets killed brutally.
But in saying that, it's almost a comforting relief that the way it's been handled.
Yes.
I always say when Jennifer's Body comes up, imagine this film in the hands of a male director.
Yes, yes.
Imagine your Platinum...
And that's just it. It's a very femme power kind of film, the way it's been made.
Because, look at if Platinum Dunes were to release this. So, they couldn't have Jessica Biel in Texas Chainsaw without, her knocks almost falling out of a singlet the entire time. This movie, even the way it's marketed, it looks like just another, fantastic. Megan Fox is in this movie to be TNA. But then when you actually find out that her power in the movie... She's using the TNA to basically...
Yes.
It's the web of, of her trap. And if a male was to make this movie, it'd just be she's hot for the sake of being hot.
And that's just it. She played this incredibly powerful character, and even today, everyone wants to be Jennifer from Jennifer's Body. I think we can safely say that.
Well, you were discussing before this evening started that you're a huge fan of Machine Gun Kelly. So... Or you weren't.
He's fine.
No, I'm joking. It's just sad that that's essentially what she's known for now. is being his significant other rather than...
Yeah, there was that really cringy video at the Met Gala where she was calling him daddy constantly. That got to me a tiny bit. I was like, oh, Megan, no. No, don't do that.
Yeah, it definitely... In saying that, to be an asshole, because, I've got to win my stripes back every time I make a nice point.
Okay.
Amanda Seyfried, do you remember maybe mid-2000s, a lot of, let's call them aunties for lack of a better term, got the cover on their spare tyre on the back of their car, and it was those cats with photoshopped really big eyes and exaggerated features. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. But that is what Amanda Seyfried looks like to me.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
I will find a picture at some point and I'll show you what I'm talking about.
No, I get it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And, as much as it's... I totally understand. A lot of people hate Seth MacFarlane, but the joke that he made in the second Ted movie where she asks, do I have F me eyes? And he goes, no, you've got... my precious eyes, and basically says she's got Gollum's eyes. I was like, that is so true.
Oh, no.
So what else don't you like about the physical appearance of people in this movie while you're saying all this stuff? It's not me that said it. It's your choice special this evening, not my choice special.
Oh.
How often do you revisit this one? Because it's a lot of fun.
All the time. We watch this movie all the time. I actually showed it to my partner, and it's one of his favourite films now, so he probably watches it more than I do.
It's the most lighthearted film on your list.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Yeah, and then everything else is kind of like dark and weird and art housey.
If you were to put this next to, well, you almost have. If you were to put this next to Jennifer's body next to The Hunger on a list, and someone had to make the link.
But that would be a really hot crossover. Imagine the Jennifer's body character in The Hunger. Yes.
Do you need some time? We good?
Yeah, I'll take a quick break and then I'll be back.
Nice. This is DVG. Let's jump back into a little bit more music before we get through this list. Hopefully we're going to get to it all. This is Dave's Video Graveyard. We are talking about one of the best handled school shooting movies of all time.
Oh, no.
You're talking about Heathers. Why did you choose this film?
Heathers is iconic for so many reasons.
But at the same time, it's not. Like, I would definitely say this is what I consider a cult classic, as in, I always find like I'm the guy in the room explaining this movie to a bunch of people that have never heard of it.
And what's funny about that is, like all the references, all the lines in the film, they're all from something. And it's one of those movies that if you watch it, you'll be like, oh my God, that's why I heard this. That's where I heard this from. That's what that song lyric's from. It just foundations so much in that film. But it's not technically a horror film. It's more like a teenage horror, if that makes sense. Just like a high school drama.
It's whatever the movie Jawbreaker is. It's whatever that kind of thing.
It parallels with Jawbreaker a lot,
and
in
even
that kind of way.
Rules of Attraction, a few other movies where it ties like the coming of age of like teenagers and stuff with all these other...
And those emotions are so strong as well. So anything that you experience as a teenager, it's just like mind-blowing proportions compared to what it actually is.
I was going to say, you put so much weight and so much consequence on things that, hindsight 2020, you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like there's going to be a pandemic soon. Calm down.
Yeah, that's it. Tell us more.
Yeah, so you've got this story where Winona Ryder comes across Christian Slater's character. He's this kid from out of town. There's we were actually talking about it before, but there's a lot of parallels between his character and Heath Ledger's Joker. So he plays kind of this destructive character that ends up, they become like a Bonnie and Clyde and get back at the school, killing people at the school.
With the intention of blowing up the entire school.
Yeah, and then it leads to that eventually. But even the things that he says, the way Christian talks, he's got the trench coat jacket. The whole time I was watching the film, I was like, is this Heath Ledger's Joker? So I want everyone to watch that movie and then try and spot that.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. But yeah, you're definitely right. It's not so much a horror, it is a black comedy. Like, I'd put this in the same basket as the likes of Fargo, like a lot of the Coen Brothers stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a almost straightforward premise, but it's hyper...
It switches emotions a lot while you're watching it as well, because obviously there's the dark comedy to it, but like every time I watch the film and it gets that last scene and he's like messed everything up and he's out the front, he's got like a finger missing and that, and he's got the bomb still strapped to him, and then he's like clicking it saying like he hated his life and he's ready to blow himself up. I cry. Like, it's so sad that this kid's just messed up in the brain and it causes him to do all these horrible things to school. And in that sense, it's horror. Like, that's horror to me, something that evokes that much emotion.
Yeah. So you didn't manage to blow the school up then?
No, not yet.
Yet being the key word.
Not yet.
Move in now. She said it into the microphone. From the director of 40 Days and 40 Nights, an absolute classic of let's just make a movie with Josh Hartnett because he did so well in Halloween H2O. What do you think of Halloween?
Yeah, it's a classic. It's good. Yeah.
What do you think of Halloween Resurrection? Specifically, what do you think when Busta Rhymes roundhouse kicks Michael Myers out of a window?
See, I don't remember these films very well because they're not the ones that I usually rewatch, the old slashes and that. I'm usually watching them all out.
You're a purist.
Yes.
It's so weird because as I asked that question, a monocle actually grew in front of your eye and you have a small top hat on now.
Looking like more of a wanker.
And I'll ask that you put that pipe out inside. But you're like, no, I don't watch those. No. How very dare you mention that around me? Rob Zombie who?
I love Rob Zombie.
Same. I think his Monsters is going to be something special.
Oh, I'm excited for that. It's going to be disgusting. And I love that.
100% it is going to be. How often do you rewatch Heathers? Is it enough for me to be concerned?
Heathers is again another Jennifer's Body, because when I was watching Heathers, there was this one scene where she's writing in her diary and she says a Sonny Moore lyric, and then my partner's upstairs like half asleep and he's just like, Celia, what film are you watching? Comes down, watches it, realise his like whole emo revival is in this film through all the quotes and that, and he watches it as often as he watches Jennifer's Body now, so bless his soul.
Nice.
He has 2 copies.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, you got to have a backup.
Yeah. That one scene of Winona Ryder in the shower when she's having a little bit of a mental breakdown. Got a backup for that.
Yeah, that's it, you know.
Yep.
And if one of the copies ends up looking like a Krispy Kreme donut, then you've got a backup.
Yeah.
I meant looking unhealthy. I don't know what you thought I meant by that. Now, let's move on to your next choice. This movie is fascinating because I have not seen it. I have read about this movie so much over the last few days since you sent me the list. I still have zero idea what this movie is.
Oh, man.
As much as I'm not that much of a fan of dance music or disco.
So, no.
Before we get into it, I would like to play this little music track.
Yes, because it's iconic.
It is.
It's a lot, but it's iconic.
But let's do it. There we go. Sorry to cut you off. That song finished a lot earlier than I realised. What is going on here?
So Climax is just a mess with the storyline. Basically, it's actually based off of a true story that happened. But a French dance troupe, they go out and stay in this place that's like kind of out in the middle of nowhere in the snow, and someone spikes the sangria with LSD. So it's very, and I'm going to use that word again, claustrophobic. It's very uncomfortable because you've got this one scene at the beginning where they play that really ridiculous song and they're all dancing, having a good time. And it lingers on for like a good 20 minutes. You're just like, are they just going to keep dancing? Is this
it's
a
like
movie?
Abercore. I really don't like it. It's unsettling.
And that's it. It's unsettling. So you're watching it, and then after a while, everyone's drinking more and more of the sangria, drinking the Kool-Aid type thing, and they start like getting more and more messed up. Then the camera just follows people around, so it's not from switching from scene to scene. It's doing that uncomfortable thing of just continuing filming, and it goes to like people setting each other on fire, murders start happening, the trip just goes real bad, and it's an incredible film, but incredibly uncomfortable.
I'm just trying to remember, is it Valley of the Dolls? What is that movie where they all go to like a party at like, do you know the movie?
Valley of the Dolls is the Sharon Tate one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. There was a film, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it's I almost feel like it's the blueprint of this movie, because it's a bunch of celebrities like having like a cool swinging 70s party.
Yeah.
And then they all do drugs, and then one of them's got a samurai sword and runs around and starts killing people.
And it's very that, like, it just goes all to hell, and by the end, like, everyone's dead at the end of this film. Like, it's just a mess, but really terrifying. And the entire time I was watching it, I was actually with my partner at the time. He wasn't focusing on it because it was more of one of my weird horror films, but I'm just sitting on the couch, just curled up in a ball, like, oh my god, what am I watching? Terrifying.
Now, it blows my mind, because stylistically, watching the trailer, I was trying to watch this movie without watching it, and
tell me how you really feel.
Watching it visually, I was like, and I just said this before we come back on air, I was like, visually it reminded me so much of Irreversible, and you've pointed out it's from the same maker-director.
So all his movies are very thematic, so you've got Irreversible.
I've only seen Delicatessen and Irreversible.
Yeah, Irreversible I personally find very hard to watch because of the very obvious reasons of what it contains.
Because you don't like Monica Bellucci. Yep.
Yeah, that.
I'm feeling ya. I didn't like her in the third Matrix either.
Enter the Void's also a very difficult film to watch, but that's basically a storyline where a drug dealer dies and then goes into a DMT-induced trip of his entire life and kind of witnesses his life flashing before his eyes.
So it's Vanilla Sky on acid.
It's a lot, and I wouldn't want anyone watching it, if they do decide to watch it, don't watch it if you can't handle flashing lights, because that film's a lot. But all his films are very thematic in the sense it's all about like trips, hallucinating, and the horrors of that. He's actually got a new film coming out that he's been posting about, and he's been posting little subtle photos, but I'm hoping it's good. Hopefully not.
Marvel have stolen a lot of his color scheme for his posters. Looks like a Guardians of the Galaxy or
I wouldn't
Ready
be surprised.
Player One poster.
I'm sure he'd be angry about it as well.
I can imagine.
I reckon you should watch Into the Void. That's one to watch.
I'll watch it much like back in the day when there was like Aphex Twin music videos on Rage in the middle of the night with all the lights off so that every strobe is like amplified in the room.
Even the opening credits, because I had to buy the DVD to be able to watch the film recently, even the credits were just like these trippy colours and flashing lights, and I was like, my eyes hurt. I don't know if I can watch this whole film.
I did hear one of I don't want to sell anyone out, so I'll just say that one of your partners told me that you are one of those guys that imports hard to find films and DVDs. So you're definitely not. You're definitely. I didn't mention any names. There was at no point did I specifically say who told me, but
I'm sounding psychotic.
Because I dabbled in that in the 90s, and it ended up with my standard definition DVD player from like 1997 being locked to a different region because I'd watched my imported copy of They Live too many times. So what does your collection encompass, if you don't mind me asking?
So it's basically any films that I can't stream. So anything, it's like little bit too terrifying to be on streaming platforms or any of the harder to find horror films. At the moment, I'm really trying to track down Itchy the Killer. I haven't seen that.
I have it on DVD if you would like to borrow it.
I would like to borrow that, thank you, because for some reason the copies I've found are like $200.
Now, learn the lesson that I learned when I bought it, because when that came out, I saw Battle Royale. That was the first film I ever saw distributed by Mann Films. The second being the Muay Thai movie Ong Bak, which is a fantastic film. The third being Itchy the Killer. But what I learned was to go in the settings and turn off the English dubbing of Itchy the Killer, because it is hyper violent and hyper stylized in a silly way. But when it's in its original language, it's very sinister. But when it has been dubbed by a company from New Zealand, have done all the dubbing, and they've taken liberties with the tone of the dubbing. So it becomes the silliest movie where, just the most silly New Zealand accents put over this very visceral, gory movie.
It's very interesting because it definitely is something, now that you're saying it, it does happen a lot. Because I even noticed that happening with the subtitles on Squid Game, and that how different they were compared to what the characters were actually saying.
Not just that, we switched. I was wondering, there is the scene in, I reckon it's like the second episode, where the two females are in the cubicle. Yeah. And one is pretending to have a hard time to make sure the guards don't come in. And she's like, don't come in here, don't come. And it's the most silly, over the top. We switched it back to, I believe it's Korean originally.
Yes.
We switched it back. And it's actually unsettling, because it's a very horror, fear-filled scream, whereas you hear what the end result was, and it was totally silly. Where we felt like it would make the guards come in. So, how many DVDs do you think you would own?
At the moment, I have got a lot downloaded.
Do you ever put on an eye patch and go that route of finding a film?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Completely full pirate.
You're in good company then.
Yes. But, just a small collection of the ones where I just kind of get impatient and I want to watch them now, sort of thing.
Yeah, I know the vibe. Like, I quite often get that, and I'm sure that because of the way Australia rolls out horror films, I'm sure I'll find the torrent for Halloween Kills before I'm sitting in a cinema for sure.
Yeah.
And that's not my fault.
I was actually, it's funny you even say that with Into the Void. I was going to go watch it recently because I was Googling it and I saw a cinema screening for it, and I was like, oh, sweet, I'll go see it. Anyway, it was just some random name of cinema. Turns out it's this uni cinema. I rock up, look out the front, exactly and there's just like this group of uni kids in there. They've got like set up chairs and everything, and it's like a uni event, and I'm just out the front being like, I want to watch a Yes or No movie, and I just kind of peeked, and I was like, nah, I'm going to go buy the DVD and go home. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, that is it.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, Climax has not made it onto my list this evening, but I'm glad it's on yours.
I reckon you should watch it.
I watch a lot of movies with climaxes, and this is not going to be one of them.
Oh,
I just realised that sounded like porn. I didn't mean that, but I'm happy with that. Speaking of porn, it's time to talk about Mads Mikkelsen. So please contain yourself. It is time. You've chosen for your final two choices. Believe it or not, we're going to join them together, and I bet you can guess why. You've chosen a movie about sheep called Silence of the Lambs. I believe it's a Pixar animated film.
That's going to infuriate me that you said a movie about sheep, Silence of the Lambs. That's killing me
Have you not seen the meme where
Silence of the Sheep?
It's a review on Amazon, and someone just wrote, not a strong start to the franchise. 0 sheep. No, 0 lambs. 0 stars. Now, you've picked that, and you've also chosen Hannibal, the television series.
Yep.
My first question to you, this isn't Hannibal Rising? Is that a different show?
No. So Hannibal Rising was another movie in
It was
the
a
series.
movie, right.
So you've got Hannibal Rising, the Hannibal movie, and then you've got Silence of the Lambs. and they're actually part of a trilogy.
And is Hannibal, the TV series we're talking about, is that a retelling of Red Dragon and Manhunter?
It's a retelling of Red Dragon, Hannibal Rising, and the Hannibal film, I think, because it's got the character, Gary Oldman character from the Hannibal film.
The face eaten by pigs man.
Yes,
That's his actual character name. Don't look it up.
I'm angry that I can't remember his name right now, but it combines all of that. But the reason that I put them both on the list is because obviously the Anthony Hopkins character is so incredibly iconic.
Who's he play?
He plays the cop, and then goes and interviews the serial killer who's locked up.
That's right. Yeah.
Jodie Foster is the main murderer in the film.
He plays the I can smell you guy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
What did you before we get to this, what did you think of Julianne Moore as Clarice Starling?
I loved that, actually. I think that she paralleled with Jodie Foster fantastically. There was a lot in that movie where they diverted away from the book, so that's why I included both Silence of the Lambs and then the Hannibal series, because the movies themselves were fantastic, but the actual TV series is so much closer to what the books are and what the original story is.
Michael Mann directed Silence, is that right? Director of Heat and a heap of other stuff.
I think so, yeah.
Double check. Yeah. Because I did them completely out of order, so I saw Silence of the Lambs first, then saw Hannibal.
It's one of those ones where they made the other films. They made Silence of the Lambs, then I think it's one of those situations where you'd have to be like a diehard Hannibal fan to watch like Hannibal Rising and think it's a good film, because otherwise you're kind of going to be like, what's going on? There's this teenager like learning to kill people, blah blah, and then it connects and turns into Hannibal.
Well, I don't even think Hannibal was that good of a film, because
my
memory
that's
is
the
like
thing. None of them are that great standalone films unless
he
you're
makes
a Hannibal
Gary
fan.
Oldman eat his own face and he stabs a dude in the doodle. That's my memory of that film.
But
5 stars.
But then the thing is that's where the Hannibal series comes in, and they've got that same cutting off the face scene where...
Did they show that scene?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, you've sold me. I'm going to watch that show.
So they walk in, and the character's just sitting in the dark, and there's the dogs all around him, and you don't see his face, and he's just like feeding his face to the dogs, and then finally it lights up, and his face is missing, and it's just like... amazing, just an amazing scene. But the whole series as well, I sound like a psychotic, but so many incredibly creative kill scenes throughout the series as well, and they're all very artsy and beautiful the way that they've been done. But the Hannibal character itself, looking back, Anthony Hopkins is nearly kind of a slasher Hannibal, very kind of cartoonic in a way if you think about it, but then the Mads Mikkelsen one really gets that kind of sinister, sort of just expressionless, emotionless doctor character, and he nails it in a way.
Well, let's face it though, Mads looks like a handsome skeleton, so...
Oh, he's my type of man, yes.
So you don't like people that look like an out-of-shape Garfield? How very dare you? How very dare you? What's wrong with those people? In saying that, if I was a character in a Hannibal film, unfortunately, I'd be stuck to a wheelchair and set on fire. Actually, no. I lie. I just remembered. Ray Liotta eats his own brain in Hannibal.
Yeah, and that scene was wild as well. They did that scene as well in the Hannibal series too. So there's all those parallels there done differently.
So they're fully...
It's an entire universe, really, yeah.
That actually does sound fantastic.
Yeah.
Because the trailer that I watched for it when I was looking it up it was quite clear that the profiler was Edward Norton's character from Red Dragon, or the guy from Law and Order from Manhunter.
Yeah.
I often wonder, just from an acting standpoint, what Brian Cox thinks when, because obviously he was the original portrayal of Hannibal Lecter. and no one cared. And then along came Anthony Hopkins, and it became one of the most iconic bad guys in all of cinema history. I wonder if he cried himself to sleep many times.
It's like the Joker situation of when Jared Leto got offended by everyone liking all the other Joker characters, and he was like, what about me? And it's like, your character was sucked, sorry.
Yeah, that's that whole film.
Yep.
Don't release any more cuts of any of those films.
Oh, please don't.
I want a Snyder cut where they just put Rob Schneider in every scene of every Batman movie. That would be a film worth watching. How often do you enjoy? How much of a slog is it to get through Hannibal? How many seasons are we talking?
So it's 3 seasons.
Is it still going?
They're going to be making a 4th season, as far as I've heard. So, because they've included obviously like the Red Dragon backstory, and then the Hannibal Rising story, the Hannibal story. They still haven't touched base on the Silence of the Lambs story, so Buffalo Bill's character, etc. There's that other series that's come out on Stan and Clarice. Have you seen that one at all?
No.
So they've made another stand-up series where it's Jodie Foster's character, Clarice, and it's her story after like the trauma that she went through with Buffalo Bill and then her solving other crimes. That's good. It's not as good as Hannibal.
I feel like perhaps almost in a Handmaid's Tale type way. Have they touched on again? Because a big part of the original character was the nepotism and the sexism in the FBI of no one believing in her because she's a female.
Yes.
I feel like the series that would be front and center.
Yes. And that's the thing. Even with Silence of the Lambs, even a lot of the themes in that, if it was remade today, there's a lot that could be modernised about that as well. Because even the way that the Buffalo Bill character is portrayed, it's he's nearly kind of like a tragic heroine to me in a way as well.
I want the end of the Mads, because he's in Hannibal the series.
Yeah.
I want the final scene to somehow be something heavy falls on him and he gets about 3 feet shorter and he gets stung by lots of bees and gets a much chubbier. And then he actually becomes Anthony Hopkins in the final scene. And it's
I
this
hate
weird,
that so much.
It's like a Flashpoint multi-universe thing. And then you realise that you've been so attracted to Hopkins the whole time.
I still think Anthony Hopkins is attractive as well. That is absolutely fine with me.
Awesome.
Lots to think about.
Believe it or not, we are all out of time. So you have taken us through much of a horror journey. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Next time you come back, I'll be well read. I'll do all my research.
I'll only come back if you watch Climax.
I could probably find.
We'll make a deal.
I could probably find another.
You want me to watch, and then you can watch Climax.
I want you to watch I Saw the Devil.
Yeah.
And 2001's Bubble Boy. They're your 2 movies that I want you to watch so that we're meeting halfway. So I'm watching Climax.
Dumb.
Can it be any movie called Climax? Because I reckon I could find another one with the same title.
I'm watching these 2 films. Just watch the real Climax.
All right, I'll watch Climax.
You'll thank me later. It's a good one.
All right. I will try not to turn pretentious once I've seen it, but I probably will name drop it in every conversation. Like
you might even become a fan of David Lynch. You never know.
That's not going to happen. I like Bubble Boy from 2001. I'm never going to like David Lynch.
Just those words, Bubble Boy. Oh, I'm in for time. Good.
It is a classic, an underrated classic, and you need to enjoy it. And if you enjoy that, come back. I've got many a more suggestion.
Hooray. Sounds good.
Where can people check out what you've got going on?
So if you go to my Instagram, Celia Dunne _tattoos, I post a horror every single Monday. At the moment, during October, I'll be posting one every single day, just via my stories, and you can check them out there. I've got them on a highlights reel as well. And yeah, always love posting about horror, always love discussing horror.
Well, I also apologise for the warning at the start, because you're clearly one of Moisty's unmoistiest friends. So that is the greatest compliment I can bestow upon anyone in this.
Unmoistiest.
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 It's a type.
Bless her
It's a
soul.
type. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you.
Krez is on his way into the studio. This is 100.5 WOWFM.